Hey guys, Rigo here with the Noobs, and in today's video I'm going to talk about where we are with Call of Duty, across Modern Warfare 2 and also Warzone 2, to see where the numbers are at and if the game is starting to lose its popularity, and I'll also chat about what I think the devs need to do to improve the situation. So Modern Warfare 2 launched back in late October of last year, with Warzone 2 following around a month later, so as titles they're still both relatively new. But when we think about Call of Duty and the reality that we almost always see yearly releases, at least with reference to Modern Warfare 2, it is nearly halfway through the typical life cycle of a COD title. We're midway through Season 2, having just had Season 2 Reloaded drop, and this brought with it a few new party game modes and some new weapons. Importantly though, it only brought with it one new 6v6 multiplayer map, and this is something I'll come on to later. Now, given the typical time frame of a COD title, you'd expect the player count to have settled down to an average by now, i.e. unless anything groundbreaking is released as part of future content drops, where we are right now will be pretty standard for the life cycle of the game. So where are we? Well, the numbers are pretty concerning. The 24-hour peak on Steam charts slipped under 90,000 this week, with a peak of 88,124 players. This is from an all-time high of 488,497, and this all-time peak of nearly 500,000 players was predictably when the game launched. Now you'd expect this to be the case, a new title from a famous franchise gets released and fair weather players jump back in for a short period of time. The concern however is the significant fall-off that we've seen since the game launched. Another point to consider here about that 24-hour peak, this isn't just Modern Warfare 2, this stat also includes those playing Warzone 2. So for the sake of the example, let's just split it down the middle. This would mean that you have less than 50,000 people in this example playing each game. Now it's important to note that this is just Steam charts. It crucially doesn't include numbers from Xbox or PlayStation consoles. For example, I'm on Xbox and I'm never struggling to find a game, but a lot of people do play COD on PC, so the numbers are likely to be incredibly concerning for the devs working on Call of Duty. Now as I mentioned, most games will typically drop from the all-time peak they reach from launch, but there's usually fluctuation. Looking at the month-to-month on Steam charts paints a picture of consistent and pretty rapid decline. But why is this the case? Well, the first point as far as Modern Warfare 2 is concerned is a perceived lack of content. The majority of multiplayer maps that have been released have been remakes of classics. We've had Shipment and Dome to name a couple, and players, whilst enjoying these retro maps, want to see something new. The general feeling in the community is that COD can launch a new title, but it's kind of just a remake of the content from the previous one. Now to a certain extent this can be a good thing. If you look at Warzone 2's Al Mazrah map, there are multiple POIs which represent the very best classic COD maps, like Terminal and High Rise, but why aren't they in multiplayer? You think that if the design is already there and active in Warzone 2, then it should just be a case of translating that into a cordoned off version to fit into multiplayer. Now it's clearly not that simple, but it can't be a million miles from that. So that general feeling of discontent in the community is A, us having a lack of new content coming out each season, and B, the content that we do get is stuff we've already played. One particular example is the Museum map. This was a great map and part of the beta, but disappeared as part of the full game launch. It recently came back and was essentially marketed as a new map, which isn't really the case, and doing things like this will inevitably frustrate the community. But what about Warzone? Well, I don't think the lack of content is necessarily the issue here. We've recently had a new Resurgence map in Ashika Island, and I do feel that there has been a steady stream of new content. The problem with Warzone 2 seems to be a change from the original style of gameplay. There's always going to be situations where you don't know you're in the good old times until you've left them, but the fact that players are crying out for a return of Verdansk, a map that was heavily complained about at the time, shows how stale players think Warzone 2 is at the moment. Another obvious factor is competition. There's a bunch of FPS titles on the market right now that COD has to compete with, whether that's Overwatch, Apex Legends or Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike in particular could become a problem for COD further down the road, with the announcement that CS2 will launch in the summer. I played Counter-Strike years ago, but hearing the announcement made me jump back into the game, taking away from the time I have free to play COD, and I'm clearly not going to be the only person in this situation. Now is COD actually dying? Realistically, I think the answer is no. The player count is fluctuating and trending downwards due to the factors I've covered in this video, and the list is probably more exhaustive than what I've covered. But as a franchise, COD is so huge that it will inevitably bounce back. But what needs to happen for that bounce back? Well, the developers need to listen to the community a bit more. When there's a huge consensus that wants 24/7 shipment or certain game modes rotated in or out, then this should be taken on board. And aside from that, on the Modern Warfare 2 front at least, we need more meaningful content. I'd like to see more party games come in like Prop Hunt and Gunfight, and more maps, classic and new, get added. As a first port of call, I'd love to see those two maps that I mentioned earlier, Terminal and High Rise, get added to multiplayer, along with perhaps one new map as part of a seasonal launch. We need more than one map to drop at a time to keep things fresh, and make me feel like I want to pick up the controller and play COD again. Can Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 recover to anything close to that all-time peak? Sure, but changes need to happen and the views of the dedicated community need to be taken on board more. But what do you think about Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2? Do you feel like either of those titles are dying, or are we just seeing competition with other games resulting in a reduction in people having time to play COD? And what fresh content would you like to see added to the games as we progress through the next seasons? Just before you go, if you enjoyed this review or you've come across our content before and enjoy it, then click that subscribe button. We're a growing community and we stream regularly on Friday evening UK times, so come join our Discord. Until then, take care guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.